Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Direct Insurance Podcast, otherwise known as DIP, brought to you by Insurance Advisors Direct. I'm your host. My name is Kelsey. I am the digital marketing assistant as well as social media strategist for Insurance Advisors Direct. And today I have a very, very special guest. I have here in studio the Bougie Budget Mom. So this is my good friend Tiffany. So Tiffany, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and really kind of like your journey to getting here.
Oh man, I always get so nervous when somebody asks me that because I'm like, well, who am I?
I know, I do the same thing. I'm like,
It's like in an interview, like I have that moment. But hey guys, I'm Tiffany. I'm also known as the Bougie Budget Mom on TikTok. I am not new to social media. I've been on social media since I feel like the beginning of Dawn's time. But I really got married into social media, content creation, branding, marketing about a year ago when I decided that I not only wanted to be a mindset coach, and that is what I have done now for the last 2.5 years, but I wanted to be able to reach other people in a different platform and in a different light. And so I really started focusing on marketing and branding myself. And that is how the Bougie Budget Mom was born. She was born off of a $30 budget Aldi video that I was not expecting to go viral. It was kind of one of those things like I posted it and hours went by and I looked back at it later and I was like, holy crap, I'm viral.
Yeah.
I didn't really
like, oh my gosh,
what's going on? Who am I? And I, grew in following, and now here I am about a year later sitting at over 108K followers, which is just like, pinch me. I feel famous. It feels really cool.
Just to think about 100,000 people who know who you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like to think 100,000 people know me.
Yes.
Like, what?
It's very interesting. And also, like, when I get noticed in public, it's really interesting when my kids are with me because they're like, did she ask for your autograph?
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. But yeah, 108,000 people. So you started off doing social media stuff through TikTok, and therefore the Bougie Budget Mom was born. But tell me a little bit more about how you've kind of come into this personal brand. Really, what was the journey like? What sort of changes did you have to make to your lifestyle, or what sort of changes did you have to make in your content creation process to really move forward with producing a personal brand?
Yeah, so I think that I had to, for one, I'll be very honest, there was a little bit of trial and error, and I feel like that comes with anything, whether you have training or not, and education behind it. And I have no social media education. I went to college and all of those fun things, but there was really no, here is the book on social media branding. It was more of, let's figure it out. And so I did do quite a few months of trial and error in figuring it out. But when it came to understanding the power of a personal brand, and then not only branding myself, but branding as the Bougie Budget Mom. So I'm Tiffany, right? And that is my personal brand, but my business brand is the Bougie Budget Mom. And so a lot of it was taking a look at other content creators that were out there and seeing what they did and how they did it and how they made it work, right? So we were talking earlier off mic, or what do they say? Off the record.
Off the record.
And everything is content. And so when I was starting out, I was filming everything, and it can be overwhelming to film everything, but then I was able to take bits and pieces of that and put that into what I like to the Bougie Budget Mom masterpieces and show them just a look into my life, not only as the Bougie Budget Mom, what is it like to budget? What is it like to be a content creator, also a mom and a wife and all of these things, but also what was it like to be me?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be able to bring all of that to them. So yeah. That's, many people who know me on TikTok know that my life motto is words are hard, right? And I feel like my brain is going 100 miles a minute and my mouth is trying to keep up, and it can't because I have all these thoughts.
Hashtag ADHD.
Yes, it's gotta get out.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. But so let's go ahead and first talk about like what is a personal brand. So I kind of did a little bit of Googling here, but so is that your personal brand is the story that tells the world who you are, what you do, and how what you do provides value to its customers. So I'm constantly trying to explain to our agents that are enrolled in our social media marketing programs, or just in general if they're asking for branding or lead generation advice, is what should I be doing? And I'm like, you should be out there telling telling the world who you are, what you do, and how what you do provides value. So the personal brand, from what I could gather, is that it's your personal values, it's your beliefs, what you stand for. It's what gives you reasoning to choose you over somebody else. And it's also the overall imagery that the world sees from you and your business on and offline. So tell me a little bit more about how you kind of stepped into this personal brand in the sense of, I know we had kind of already talked about like the budgeting aspect of your brand, but why is it that someone should choose to follow you or really become invested in your content, or even to sign up for a mindset coaching session based on your personal brand? What is it that sets you apart?
Yeah, so because when we are talking about branding, we're not just branding our brand, right? So your insurance company, but you're also branding yourself. And it's the same across the board. No matter what you are doing when it comes to marketing, you have to be able to separate your personal brand and like a fish brand, official. So your personal brand is what you stand for. So your ethics, your values, your beliefs, what makes you you? How do you tick? What makes you tick?
Yeah.
And so when I was creating and I say creating like Bougie Budget Mom's personal brand, that was already there, right? But how was I going to share it with the world and show them that I'm human too? And I think that is what I wanted to get across the most, was I wanted my viewers and my followers to understand that even though I am this content creator and I budget and I do all these things, I am just like you, right? And so I have bad days, words are hard. I show them what it's like to have to do all these things while being a mom and being a partner and trying to, still focusing on my dreams and all of the things. And so personal branding is extremely important because that is what's going to set you aside from your competition. So, we talked a little bit earlier about how there are however many insurance agents, we'll say in Wayne County, Michigan, right? You have to be different in some way from your competition. So you said imagery earlier. So that is social media branding. What does your website look like? What are you sharing with them? Are you giving them insight on not your home life, but do you have on your website a picture of your family so that they can see that you're a family man or a family woman? Do you send out personal Christmas emails? Listen, you're not going to catch me handwriting Christmas cards because of modern day technology, right? But are you sending out those Christmas cards or the Christmas emails, right? How are you connecting differently with your clientele versus Tom next to you?
Yeah.
So that is extremely important when you're building your brand. Imagery is everything, right?
Yeah.
How society perceives us. Don't let that scare you though. You're going to mess up and there are going to be trials and errors, and that's okay. That is okay.
We were actually just talking about before we sat down and started recording about how we were just so sick and tired of trying to be perfect, and how in the era that we kind of grew up in especially when we were younger, like when we were like in our late teens, early 20s, especially when YouTube was really starting to take off in regards to content creators and YouTubers and like kind of like the big rise and the big boom of YouTube, and how we grew up watching these YouTubers that were very edited, very scripted, and very much like, oh, look how perfect my life is, even though it wasn't. And now we're kind of in that era of social media now where people are like, I want to see you mess up.
Yes, I need to see the real you.
Yeah, it's not like in a sense of that we want to see something negative, because even though we as humans, we're still very drawn to the dumpster fires of life, but we want to see people being real. Like we want to see what real life is like. Like we all understand that, as a parent, what it's like to have kids and having children just kind of like running amok in the morning, and like you're trying to get breakfast on the table, but you're also trying to make sure that like the baby's not putting their Legos in the toilet again and stuff like that. But that's real life. Like that is what people want to see. People want to know that they're not alone in their struggles. And I think that for an insurance agent, being able to showcase their personal brand and not necessarily going as far as to showcase like too much of their personal life, because obviously you don't want to, show too much of yourself.
There's boundaries.
Yeah, there's boundaries. Like you have to know where the boundaries are, but just know that it's okay to share the parts of your life that people would find interesting and things that people would find interesting about you. Like if you live on a lake and you like to go out boating on the weekends with your friends and family, take pictures, take videos, post that to your social media. And it doesn't have to be just on your personal page. It could be on your LinkedIn page. It can be on your TikTok. It could be on Facebook. It could be on, and I especially say to use it for Instagram, because you can even just tie it back to your business and have it to do with something in related to like networking or whatever the post may be. I know that some people might have like be a little stiff when it comes to LinkedIn and say like, oh, you're not supposed to share personal stuff like that on LinkedIn. It's like, guess what? It's your social media page. Who cares? Like, people want to be able to see the real life aspect of your life. So just share it.
And I love that you brought up like if boating is your thing, right? So if you're an insurance agent, and most insurance agents have a specialty, right? Home, life, auto. So if you're sharing about how you enjoy boating and all of those things, I don't know much about boating other than laying on one and having a daiquiri, right? Floating in my floaty tied to it.
Yeah.
But that is going to set you aside from somebody else who maybe doesn't own a boat, doesn't understand anything about boats. And so then when somebody is coming in and looking for insurance on their boat, it's going to set you aside, right? That can be a part of your personal brand. So a specialty is part of your personal brand. For me, my personal brand is budgeting and mindset, right? Even though you can be a broke bish, okay? And still have a great positive mindset, right? And we can work through it because that is life.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest part of my personal brand and what I stand for is even though sometimes life sucks, I'm more of a glass half full than a glass half empty. So it's half full. What can I do with this?
Yeah.
Where can I go with this? And where can this take me? Who can I pour into that I am going to not only benefit and grow from, but they're going to benefit and grow from, right? And then we're tossing our glasses back and forth, you know, and then it ends up being a full glass for both of us at the end of it. So,
but yeah, I mean, especially, so a lot of our agents that are contracted with us through IAD, they are in the life insurance, annuities, as well as Medicare markets. And a lot of them are independent. They're either independent agencies or they're just like a one man or a one woman show. So they are their own LLC and they're just, you know, out here doing the dang thing, you know. But so tell me how, as a one woman show yourself, how you kind of separate your personal brand from your business brand, and tell me kind of like what's the difference in that and how would that relate to an independent agent?
Yeah, so you have to look at, like we talked about, your personal brand is your ethics, your morals, the things you stand for, what makes you you. You have to, it's almost like an invisible line, I think, when you first start branding, because it's really easy to accidentally put them together into a melting pot. And I'm so guilty of this. It's one of those things that I've learned. But there is a line between personal branding and branding. So branding is your business, right? So it is the behind the scenes. What does your business look like? So your business hours, right? For me, that was a big part of like difference between personal branding and branding. What do my business hours look like? What marketing tools am I going to use? What is my content schedule going to be? All of those things, those went into marketing my brand versus marketing me. It's like the behind the scenes that nobody really wants, you know, as consumers, we want to see like all the fun stuff, right?
Yeah.
But behind all that fun stuff is the hard stuff. Like before you sat down and did your podcast, you did all this research, right?
Yeah.
But the listeners don't see this research. You might say, hey, I did my Google search, but they don't see the time, the hours spent. So that is part of your branding. And so when I was getting started, it was creating boundaries. So boundaries between personal branding and oversharing and stuff like that. So I learned trial and error, and I was able to figure it out. Like, okay, so this is what I want to show the world about my personal brand. And then this is the behind the scenes of what builds that brand. The foundation. It's like the foundation it lays on. So I always see any type of business, any opportunity as like a blueprint to a house, right? So we see the house once it's all built, but the blueprint is what goes into building that brand. Each nut, screw, piece of wood, you know, all of it, that is what goes into building your brand.
So why do you think that it would be so important for an independent insurance agent to build a personal brand for their business?
Yes. So like you said, most of the agents are independent standing. So they have an amazing superpower doing that, right? So they don't have like colleagues, and I know that sounds like weird, but the competition is a little bit different. Because I always like think of when I worked in a office setting and we all did the same thing, but there was like this invisible line of competition, right? But when you're an independent and you kind of work by yourself and maybe you have a home office or you have just a little office or wherever your office is,
Yeah.
regardless, it's just you, right? So you have this amazing potential to just focus on your growth. And so if that means you can focus just on your growth and not on Tom next year, I don't know why I keep referring to Tom. Tom's imaginary, but he's over there. He's Tom. Hey, Tom. You can focus on your growth and your branding and not worry about Tom's.
Yeah.
And that's a huge benefit, right? And we talk about there's so many benefits for working for yourself, and I think that's one of them. It's the same with me being a content creator. Are there content creators all around me? Yes, there could be a content creator on every corner at this point.
Yeah.
We've been doing content creating essentially since 1994 when the first digital marketing ad came out, as was the origination of content creation. It's just really adapted and changed over time, which it will continue to adapt and change over time. Just like marketing insurance will continue to adapt and change over time. We move with the times, we go with the flow. But I have the benefit of making my own schedule and doing my own thing, and that is a huge benefit of being your own brand.
I liked how you had brought up that you wanted to be able to differentiate yourself from the competition and really being able to establish that there is like a small line of like almost like the invisible line of competition. And that's the reason why I feel like I'm trying very hard to help a lot of our agents that are enrolled in our social media marketing programs to be able to describe to their audience what is their unique value proposition. What is it that makes them different from any other independent agent? And why is it that your audience should want to work with you as opposed to someone else? Because in the grand scheme of things, like, yes, there's so many insurance agents that are out there, and there are some that are, very successful, have their own agencies, and then there are some that are kind of just starting out, and they're really just working with their close network of friends and family, and then building their business pretty much from there. But once they get through that small initial group of close friends and family that have worked with them, then they're really struggling to really get outside of that. And then that's where I feel like a lot of people tend to either, they start to doubt themselves, and then they're like, okay, I can't do this. And then they'll kind of just like give up on this business. But being able to showcase their unique value proposition or what makes them different and what they bring to the table that makes them different from Tom, and what makes them the most memorable, what makes them stand out. Is it that they were just the nicest person that somebody had ever met? Was it because they had like a great conversation? Was it just because they were human? They showed the ugly side of life. We're able to kind of nowadays with social media talk about the really hard things that we never really used to back in the day. We're now very open and honest about our mental health struggles. We're able to sit here and tell our friends and family online, like when we're having a bad day. Whereas back in the day when social media kind of like first started, again, like I said, we were kind of just showing the best side of our lives, which a lot of people still do. But now it's more about showcasing real life and not just the good things in our lives, but also the hard things and the struggles as well. So what do you feel like that as an agent, what people should be posting online in order to make themselves look more human as a business?
You said it right there. They need to post that they're human. But also, we all get into our career for a reason, right? So we all have a why. So you're talking about how like you have those agents that have went through their initial circle, and now it's time to start branching out, but they're struggling with that. And a lot of that is because they're struggling, or I'm not going to say they are, because to each and every person is their own, but they may be struggling with why did they choose to be an insurance agent? And I know that sounds like such like well, why did you choose to become that? It reminds me of like senior year of high school when, what do you want to be when you grow up? And why do you want to be that? Girl, I don't even know what I want for breakfast at 17, 18 years old. Okay. I don't know. But now here we are as adults and we're going out into adult world. We have to ask ourselves, why do we want this? Why are we going to be good at this? And what is going to set us apart from somebody else?
I think that a huge thing about being in this business is just being blunt and honest, because a lot of our agents, like I had said before, are in the Medicare space. And with Medicare right now, there are so many scams are so very prevalent. And so agents are really just having to be very blunt and honest with their clients. And especially in a role where you are a salesperson, like you, because as an independent agent, you're not beholden to a single insurance company. You can have contracts with any number of insurance companies as long as you have a license for that product line. So when you are coming across all of these different clients that perhaps have been either switched into a different Medicare plan because they got a call from either like a call center or somebody that just, or an entity that did not have that client's health or best interest in mind, and you're sitting there having to pretty much give this client now the rundown of what happened to them and that they have essentially been like scammed. And how is it that now you as an agent are having to fix that problem? And that's something that does happen quite often, unfortunately, but it's not rare that an agent just has to be really blunt and honest in their business.
Yes. So I think that when you're struggling with branching out and continuing in your business and knowing what to show and how to show it, it all bounces back to your who, what, when, where, why.
Yeah.
Right? So I know I just talked about high school and we get asked, well, what do you want to be when you grow up and why? It's the same type of question you ask yourself once you become an adult and you're in your career. We all have moments in our careers where we're like, is this what I want? And the answer might be no, right? We go through that. But also sometimes the answer might be, I have to reconnect with why I decided to do this. So maybe as an insurance agent, you decided to do this because your grandma got scammed in a huge Medicare scam. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is happening way too prevalently, which I wasn't aware of, right? But this is happening way too much. I want to be able to help other people like my grandma, so that way she isn't, she's the only one after this of my clients that goes through this.
Yeah.
Right? So then you are able to connect with almost a special compassion with those type of clients that they might not get with Tom next door. Because, Tom's like, yeah, people get scammed. Whatever. Yeah. Move on, right? But you have a compassion for them. That is going to set you aside from your competition. Essentially, it all circles back to, why am I doing this? And you have to ask yourself this multiple times throughout your career. It's going to happen because we all go through droughts and moments and seasons. I don't know about anybody else, but February for me is like the toughest season of them all. So I question everything. I'm like, why is the sky blue? Right? So we question everything, but it really helps us stay connected to why we've decided to be in the business that we're in, and helps you constantly be able to set yourself aside from the other competition out there, especially when you're an individual brand. You're able to have that time. You're able to have the time to, hey, I need to sit down and kind of rebrand myself. I have been just kind of going through the motions, and I'm just, however you're getting your clientele brought in, you're just kind of reaching out to them. It's very basic. It's generic. I need to sit down and like rebrand that, because that's not how I want to be reaching out to my clients. Maybe I want to do a phone call and an email because I want to have multiple forms of communication with them. We live in a day and age where we don't like to pick up the phone anymore. We just like to with our fingers or shoot an email over across. But sometimes, and don't be wrong, I'm the type of person that I hate when people call me. But if I'm on the look for something, say it is insurance, right? When we were looking for new auto insurance, the guy that we went with was great because he sent me an email. He waited about 24 hours, and then he followed up by a phone call. And even though I didn't answer, he left me a very nice descriptive voicemail. And I was able to refer back to that email and shoot him an email back, right? So that set him aside from the other competition that was just shooting the email. And there was no like personal connection. Yeah. And that was big. I was like, oh, I like that.
Yeah. I think the personal connection part is something that you bring up that I find is very, very valuable, because one of the most important aspects of this insurance business is the personal connections. And the agents that are making those personal connections with their clients, and they're retaining those personal connections, because especially with Medicare, when you make a sale and you enroll in someone into either like a Medicare Advantage or a Medicare Supplement plan, or even like a standalone prescription drug plan or like a PDP, every year you will get a a different sort of commission. They do diminish over time. Like the amount gets lower as time goes on. However, those renewals are kind of what help to continue to feed your business. And so if your client ever needs to change their plan because, like, say, their health needs change, or if they, develop any new sort of bodily issue or any sort of disease, and then they need to, their coverage needs change, then that's when they will be able to come back to you to be like, hey, I need something new. This is what's going on, blah, 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 blah. So it's very important to retain those clients, because if you don't, they're going to end up going with somebody else. And then not only are you not going to retain those referrals, but then you're also going to lose that sale the next time they need to change.
I like that you brought up the different types of insurance through Medicare and so on and so forth, because I'm not well versed on that, right?
When I first started here, I swear to God, I didn't know anything. I knew nothing.
The commercial where it's like Medicare A and B, that's
yeah.
That's how my brain knows, right? But you can set yourself apart as a insurance provider by educating your clients with content on that.
Yeah.
Right? So whether you decide to use LinkedIn, which a lot of people have like on LinkedIn, right? Or you use TikTok or Instagram or a Facebook page or a web page, which really all of those things, you should be monetizing all of that content. So if you post on one, you monetize it somewhere else. And that's a whole different content creation conversation. But you can be using that as content. So you can be, hey, I'm going to make a quick presentation and I'm going to post that on the different types of Medicare and or the different types of insurance in general.
Yeah.
And how they can benefit from that. And then give them the ways to contact me so we can discuss more and figure out what's best for them.
I am literally so glad that you said that, because, oh my goodness, when I say, I swear to God, I don't know how many episodes I've now recorded where I've talked about our 3-2-1 rule, where for every 6 pieces of content that you have, 3 should be educational, 2 should be about you and your personal brand, and only 1 should be promotional, either promoting like yourself, your business, whatever else, but everything else should be education, because we're very much in this era now where we want to have that relationship of personal relationship with people that we do business with, because we also want to start shopping small, which is very important. I mean, I know that we've all kind of like fell victim to the fact that we're now like addicted to shopping on Amazon because of just how convenient it is. And even though there are still lots of small brands that you can purchase from on Amazon, and that does benefit them, but at the same time, we're all just kind of sitting here thinking to ourselves, like, how much more money does Amazon need? We're getting off topic. We're going on a tangent here, but like, oh my gosh. But having that personal brand helps develop, and educating your clients is going to help develop a relationship of trust and rapport, because there is absolutely nothing worse than walking by somewhere. Like, how many of you guys out there listening have ever had this problem? Maybe if you're a guy, maybe you haven't had this issue before, but as a woman, if you're walking through the mall and you get the people that sell the flat irons and the straightening irons, and they're like, oh, here, let me straighten your hair, and you're just like, oh my gosh, no, like, and you want to be nice, and you don't want to just like walk by and just be like, no, but so like you humor them, and you're like, oh, okay, cool, and then like, they do whatever with your hair with the flat iron, and you're like, okay, that's nice and everything, but I already have a flat iron. What makes this one different from the one that I have at home? And I'm like, and then you're also like, why is it also $300, for a freaking flat iron? My Revlon one that I got from Walmart for $25 works just as fine. But there's nothing worse than having someone like pushing something in your face and being super salesy. So how is it that you are going to, especially in the Medicare field, you can't solicit for Medicare. You have to pretty much just like let the people come to you, and you have to bring those people in with inbound lead generation. So how is it that how am I supposed to do that? Well, you do that through education. You have to position yourself as a fountain of insurance knowledge. So then people are like, hey, this person really looks like they know what they're talking about. They really look like they know what they're doing. I want to work with this person.
I feel like it works with, when you're educating that way, it's very authentic. So it becomes education and connection mounted together. And so, like you said, you have the 3-2-1 rule. I have the exact same rule when it comes to my content, right? I almost call it like the 3 E's. I focus on the 3 E's. It's the same base. When you're educating, you're connecting, which then circles back into, that is another very organic way of proposing yourself. It's a very great way of marketing yourself, because they are going to say, wow, he knows what he's talking about. I need to, I'm going to have my mom call him. And then it becomes word of mouth, right? And that's, we forget all the time that is like one of the best forms of.
Oh, believe me, insurance agents, they know that referrals are the best form of lead generation because they are the easiest sales to close.
Yes, because somebody can say, hey, we went through him. He was great. He was, super educated on it. I had no idea that there were all these forms of Medicare. And now I know if I have any questions, he's who I'm reaching out to. And like you said, a lot of times it ends up being a open and shut, right? Yeah. Open, you want to continue. You said like the referrals and the renewals and stuff like that. So that way that client keeps coming back. You want to make sure that you're focusing on that connection with that client. So I said earlier talking about the Christmas cards, and I keep saying Christmas cards because you have one pinned on your desk, and that's where my eyes going.
Christy.
Right? That's where it's going to, right? But the thing is you'll never not think of Christy, right? Yeah. Because she sent you a Christmas card. Yeah. So if Christy has some sort of business, guess what? You're going to go to Christy before you go to Tom because Christy sent you a Christmas card. Yeah. So then you have that connection with those clients that you have signed up for Medicare that you can now send out. Maybe bi-monthly newsletters or whatever it is that is going to keep you connected to that clientele. Yeah. And doing some sort of like, this is a different, another form of like marketing or branding, but doing bi-monthly insurance newsletters, which these can be personal, which is so awesome. So you can send out something I'm working on in my mindset coaching business is going to be starting like a bi-monthly little email newsletter that comes out. So it's super like low maintenance, right? Because it's almost a mass email. So time is money, right? We work smarter, not harder. But in that newsletter, it talks about what I have upcoming, right, in my business. Something about mindset. So it might be an article that I found. It might be a podcast episode that I've been on or that I've done. And then something personal about me. Yeah. Right? So maybe a picture of like my kids or a picture of, a spring day and we're welcoming in spring and how we spent the day. This helps you not only connect with your clients, but you're marketing yourself in a very organic way. Organic marketing is everything. Yeah. We're getting away from the gimmick, right? Like you said, that straightener person, I fell victim to that straightener person when I was like 16 and I'm not proud of myself. But it happens. But we're getting away from that salesy, pitchy marketing and we're getting more into organic content marketing, branding. Yeah. All of that.
And I think that it's especially important too. So a lot of our agents are in their like 40s, 50s, maybe 60s, like maybe some of them are even in their 70s and they're just like, listen, I'm just doing this just because it's fun. I love helping people. And so even they're like, I need to retire, but I just don't feel like it yet. And so a lot of these people are kind of just very new to the world of social media. So they're not very up to wanting to use it because they've continued doing the things that have worked for them over the last 10, 20, 30, maybe even 40 or 50 years. And they're just like, if it ain't broke, why fix it? But so now we're kind of getting into this sort of like newer generation of people that might be becoming insurance agents, maybe like in their 20s and 30s, or maybe even their early 40s. And they are the ones who are using social media and they're trying to attract an audience of people that are in their 50s and 60s, or maybe even 70s. And so there's a difference in how these groups of people communicate and how they are attracted to sales and business. So obviously a lot of us in our younger years, like being in our 20s and 30s, we've seen so many of the scams that have happened over the years and we've become more privy to that. So in my opinion, I think it's going to be a lot harder for people to get scammed in the coming years. But at the same time, I also know that the scams are just going to keep getting better because they know that people are smarter. So they're going to have to keep trying harder in order to do that type of stuff.
Like a very smart virus.
But so what are the steps involved in developing a personal brand? I just kind of had some notes here that I wanted to read off. But so since developing a personal brand is all about having a very consistent look, message, and presence on and offline, these are the steps that you should take in order to decide what your personal brand is and how you want your personal brand to be perceived, especially on social media. And you have to think about what your favorite brands are and what is it that you like about them? What is it that you find that is super consistent about them? Like, for example, if we think about Nike, what are the first 5 terms that come to your mind when you think of Nike?
Oh, athletic, affordable, even though it is more of a luxury style athletic clothing, it is affordable. I think of fitness, fitness. I think of it's accessible, right? So it's a big brand, but you can find it anywhere. You can find Nike. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing Nike and Walmart, right? But we can get it on Amazon, we can get it at the Nike store, we can get it at Macy's, Kohl's, JCPenney's, you can get it at the mall. You can get Nike anywhere. So it's very easily accessible. Their marketing is phenomenal. They also do a lot of work. We talked about this yesterday off script, but like I'm big on like what companies actually do with like charity and stuff. Nike does a lot of outreach, right? You see them sponsoring inside the Special Olympics and the Olympics and all of these things. So for me, that's something that pops up as like, okay,
their corporate
outreach.
social responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that that's another important thing to bring up as well in your personal brand is what your corporate social responsibility is like. So when I was in school at U of M, I had a professor that was all about corporate social responsibility, and because it was a business ethics course, and all we talked about was people, profit, planet. So how is it that you're helping your people? What is it that you're doing to generate profit? And what are you doing to help the planet? And I think that that's something that's very, very important, especially to our younger Gen Z and even millennial generation, is the fact that we're sitting here literally trying to help the planet, because what happened with our production in the 70s and 80s and 90s and even into the early 2000s, like really, really hurt the earth as a whole. So now we're trying to kind of fix things in and of that sense. So if you're a business and you're a brand that's out here like spilling stuff into the ocean, you are going to have a very, very hard time retaining clientele, because people are going to stop purchasing from those brands. And we vote with our dollars. We're not going to work with brands or give money to brands that we find are not doing the best thing for people, the profit, and the planet.
Yep. And you're right. You're right, because there have been plenty of brands that I will not purchase from. Just personal speaking, because we've seen what they've done to our planet, which then affects our people, which then affects our country's profit, right? Yeah. And so all those things, I can see why that professor, because it's very, very important. And so I think when I think of Nike, I think of I can't remember if I said this, but very strong marketing.
Actually, that's something that I had learned while I was working at Vicky's a couple of years ago, was that we were, because Victoria's Secret's biggest competitor, you would think is like another like lingerie brand, but it's Nike. It's actually Nike. And Nike has even said that what they do best is not athletic apparel, but it's marketing. They've established such a strong personal brand that when you see that little swoosh mark anywhere, you know exactly what that is. I mean, but that in and of itself is kind of the difference between Nike and even another brand like Versace or Gucci. So what are some of the key terms that kind of come to mind when you think of like these more luxury or high-end brands like Versace or Gucci?
First word is rare. And I know that sounds kind of like, because we see it, right? We know these brands, we know the names. It's different when you don't know a brand's name that's like what you would perceive as rare. But really, it's not something you're going to see when you're just walking around, right? And I always think of like Target versus Walmart, right? So we have like the Versace and Gucci are the Targets of the world, right? And so I see rare, I see luxury, I see, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like,
there's a certain aesthetic.
Like my brain goes immediately to bougie, right? Like a bougie aesthetic. It's a vibe. It's a whole vibe.
I think bougie is actually one of the words that I put down here too. Was like bougie, luxury, quality, aesthetic, expensive.
Yes, like when you buy something, and it's an experience. Yeah. So I've never
that's an experience.
I've never been inside of a Gucci store. Okay, maybe one day. Maybe I'll put that on my bucket list. I'm not a huge, purse person or whatever, but maybe one day. But I think we were talking about Amazon earlier, right? So Amazon it's one click, done, right? When you go into the Gucci store, I think of the Coach store, because the Coach is still very luxury, but somebody greets you at the door, right? And how can I help you? What are you looking for? They might take you around the store. It is it's
a personal selling experience.
Personal, yeah. And that person is like, they have a title at their stores, and that they make a full career out of that title. And so it is a full experience. And you leave that store with your purse or your shoes or your wallet in a beautiful dust bag, packaged in a box with a bow on it. So then when you get home, you have a whole new experience of opening that.
Yeah. It's like Christmas morning all over again. Yeah.
And so that is a big thing. What is the consumer's experience with that brand?
Yeah.
So what is your consumer's experience, your client's experience going to be like with you as an insurance agent?
And even what their expectation is as an insurance agent as well. I know that we talk a lot about when it comes to This is something that I feel like I mention a lot to our agents or just in general. And when we talk about branding, is that whoever you are online and whoever you are in your business is kind of like what people are going to be expecting when they meet you in real life. And I feel like there is this sort of like persona that used to kind of be like the insurance agent. So when people think of like, oh, what an insurance agent should look like, it's kind of like an outdated sort of persona. Like the suit and tie, the very like stiff and is super duper professional. But honestly, I feel like nowadays people are really starting to really shed that persona because especially after COVID, we're like, listen, we've all adopted the soft life. We're much more casual now. And I think that so many people have adopted this mindset of that, listen, I don't care, what you dress like. I don't care, about this, that, or the other. Just, can you help me? Can you solve my problem? They don't care about whether you show up to somebody's house in like a 3-piece suit. They just want you to know that you can solve their problem. And they want to be able to know that whatever sort of experience that they're going to have with you is going to be a positive one. So like even when you think about your experience between like what's a nice like high-end restaurant. I'll just use Benihana because we've got a Benihana over here. So if you go to Benihana, you have a different expectation for your experience than you would if you were to go to McDonald's. So, like, what is the branding of McDonald's like? What do you think when you think of McDonald's?
Fast, addicting, easy and accessible,
Yeah.
over quick.
Yeah.
Right? So, you were talking about how, like, 3-piece suit, like, we're getting away from that, but it was almost intimidating. Like, my brain instantly, when you said 3-piece suit, thought of Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
Like, and it's a very, like, pop of the collar, intimidating type of thing.
I would be so intimidated. Like, okay, listen, here's the thing. As someone who has definitely embraced the soft life, okay, like, I love my jeans. Don't get me wrong. I was telling you about this yesterday. I love denim. But, like, and I would consider my style to just be, like, upscale casual. Like, this is pretty much just what I wear on, like, a daily basis. Either, like, some, like, nice cute shoes, some jeans, and then maybe like a cute like top or sweater. That's just who I am. And I would be extremely intimidated to have an insurance agent come to my house in a 3-piece suit, like in a really, really nice fancy, like, sports coat with like the matching pants and then like a silk tie. I would be really intimidated by that. But at the same time, I know that there are going to be some people that still have the expectation of an insurance agent coming to their house in the 3-piece suit, and that's fine. If that's their expectation, that's cool. But if that's not who you are, you shouldn't try to be fitting that mold if that's not who you are.
Yes. And so I always say one of my biggest life sayings is you have to live your truth. Mm-hmm. And that has to flow into your business and your branding, right? So if you I always think of like my insurance agent sent like a magnetized thing for the fridge, right? He matches in person what that picture looks like. So he's not wearing a 3-piece suit in that picture. But I remember when I first had to get insurance on my own, right? Car insurance. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to have like a little bit of ease. So, it was time. My parents were like, gotta get off of our car insurance. Like, you're getting a little too old here. And I was like, oh, please help me. I'm poor.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, where do you guys go through? Because I'll make an appointment. Because it was a referral, right? Yeah. So for one, it's helping my parents out, then helping their agent out. And I remember I was so intimidated to go into this insurance building. This was like a little independent insurance building. But I got in there, and there's multiple agents in there, and they were all so welcoming, so nice. And they had kind of gotten away from that, like, Wolf of Wall Street, pop the collar, I drink black coffee for breakfast mentality. Don't get me wrong, black coffee for breakfast is fine.
Gosh, I love coffee.
Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you got to do the black coffee.
We're all caffeine addicts up in here. We're all caffeine junkies.
But like I also, when you were talking about like the soft era, so pre-COVID, I worked a full-time career, right? I had like the desk job. I worked for a diesel repair shop, so it's like probably not the clean, tidy desk you think of, but I still had to dress kind of like business casual. I could wear nice jeans. I would have gotten in trouble for these ones, but I could wear some nice jeans, a nice top, and be fine, right? And then I left my job in the middle of the pandemic, and so it was about like late 2021, 2020, I can't even remember at this point. And I turned into that soft girl era. And so I look at my branding as like, they don't see me. It's rare. They see Tiffany the way you are seeing Tiffany today, right? In jeans. I mean, they always see me in my merch, but it's very rare they see me in jeans. Most of my branding, they see me in my gray fuzzy robe.
Mm-hmm.
We're rocking pajamas. We got slippers on, and I'm showing them real life.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to almost, we talked about earlier how imagery is like everything. And I know there's a lot of like weight that comes with that feeling of like, oh, that means every day I got to show up as 100%. Girl, this is real life. Okay.
Yeah.
And guys too. Okay. It's not that serious, but
Yeah.
at the same time, you have to show up as relatable to the clientele you're reaching for.
Yeah.
So
And that's another thing that we had talked about too was kind of like dressing for your target audience. I had actually done a podcast episode with I think it was our last episode where we had talked about the type of clients that you show up for in the three-piece suit versus the clients that you show up for in the golf shirt versus like the clients that you show up for, in just like wearing whatever. You have to know who your audience is. If you know that your clients are expecting the three-piece suit, then you should be showing up in a three-piece suit. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But like for everyone else, I feel like people are just much more casual and lax these days. So I feel like the number of people that are expecting the three-piece suit is a lot smaller than it used to be.
I also think of like, if you're going to meet a client in person, right? I don't know if that's still a thing.
Oh, yeah.
But if you are, right? If you're going to meet your client at Zoop, right? The soup place, you don't need to go in a three-piece suit.
Yeah.
You can go in a nice pair of khakis and a shirt or a nice pair of jeans and a nice blouse, right?
Yeah.
You just show up as a normal. You can't show up in your pajamas,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It would be
I
like
tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, if you're the agent that's going to show up to somebody's house in like board shorts and flip-flops and be like making margaritas with them in their kitchen, like
for one, you're the insurance agent for me.
That's all. That's what I'm saying. See, like there's the thing. There's a branding for everyone. And actually, I'm sorry, I did kind of want to skip back to really quick the steps in developing the personal brand, which we've kind of already really talked a lot about. Step one, which is defining who you are as a business owner and how you want to be perceived to your consumers. So like we had said before, like if you're the person who's like the Wolf of Wall Street, you're like, you know what, this is just me. I love to, look swanky in the three-piece suit. Fine, absolutely, go for it. But then that should also be your target audience as well, as the people who are expecting that. And if you are the person who's like, I've never worn a tie in my life, I'm gonna show up to Zoop in the board shorts and flip flops. Absolutely, that's fine. But then that's the target audience that you should be targeting, is the people who want someone who's really relaxed and not as intimidating looking. But so whoever you are is fine. But so step number 2, I think, is also defining your brand presence, especially online, by developing a brand kit. So this can encompass branding colors or fonts, or like any sort of like pictures, your logo, things like that. So how did you find in developing the Bougie Budget Mom brand, what sort of like brand fonts or brand colors, like what really was it that spoke to you, and how did you use in what spoke to you help you stand out from others? Because I think this kind of had to go with a lot of what the marketing teachers were doing in like the late 90s and early 2000s, was to say like, oh, you have to go with your colors based on mood, and blue shows that you're very trusting and all this and that. So you'll see a lot of branding for a lot of businesses with the color blue. So like, how is it that when you're developing a brand, how do you want to help your brand stand out by either not using a certain color that maybe you see other businesses in your industry using?
Yeah, so I love that you brought up like the logos and the coloring. So when I first started getting into, okay, what is my brand going to look like as a social media content creator, I went back to something I had heard years prior. And it was when somebody was talking about Instagram marketing, because Instagram is the place to be and the place to grow if you are trying to market a brand.
Yeah.
Instagram is where it's at. Instagram and TikTok, especially in today's age, right?
Yeah.
And then YouTube if you want to be more thorough, because YouTube videos are longer. I don't have the attention span for a YouTube video. So if you want to catch my attention, it's Instagram or TikTok, right? But I remember she is a content creator coach is her title now, but that's not what it was back then. But she had said you need to go through your Instagram, because we all have a current Instagram, right? And I want to say something else about that, so I'm going to check it in my brain. But put a pin in it. You have to go through your Instagram and kind of look. If you look at somebody's Instagram, you can see the general follow through of their post. So the general vibe, right? So for me, it is, I like the sunset feel, warmth, comfort. That is kind of what my brand is on Instagram. So you can go to my Instagram and you're going to feel warm and cozy, and I have a cup of coffee waiting for you. And we're going to talk about budgeting, and we're going to talk about how maybe life has sucked a little bit, and we're just going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure that I kept that on brand. And so when I went through my Instagram, I deleted things that didn't align with me anymore. And I know like we might be like, well, the internet is forever. And it is. Girl, I have no shame in my past.
Yeah.
Hey, but so there are things that I kept, but I went through and I kind of just deleted the things that didn't align anymore because we're allowed to grow, right? And we're allowed, especially at the beginning of your business and your branding.
Yeah.
You're going to mess up, right? It's going to be there. It's okay. But really making sure that you are staying aligned with that.
Yeah.
So
staying true to your brand and staying just true to yourself. And I feel like that's where a lot of people kind of fall short in regards to content creation, influencers, is that like, especially for an influencer, like their brand is themselves. I think that especially for people when they start to kind of go through this evolution of change and like, maybe they're going through different seasons. And especially in the case of YouTubers, like there have been so many studies that say that like, oh, the fastest way to kill your YouTube channel is to change up your content. Whereas I don't believe in that because I think that as people, your interests are changing as a creator. And as a person, I might be ready to have that change. Now, to somebody that maybe just discovered your channel, maybe not too long ago, and they're just now kind of getting into your content, they might not be ready for a change. But at the same time, like you need to be able to grow as a creator or as a business owner. You have to be able to branch out and do different things and try different things and experiment. Because otherwise, if you keep yourself in the same box forever and you're doing the definition of an insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So if you're doing things that aren't bringing you results and aren't making you happy, or you're creating things like content or, doing things in your business and, just kind of like, or even in your insurance business, spinning your wheels and trying different marketing tactics that just like aren't working for you and you're not happy, then that's where your business is going to fall short. Like you should be doing things that bring you joy, and don't do the things that don't bring you joy. If it's not making you happy, then who cares? Don't do it.
Yes, yesterday I went live inside my coaching group, and I was talking about I woke up with this thing we're told all the time. We hear all the time, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that. I don't like it at all. And the reason is because a lot of times if you're faking it until you make it, you are not married to what you are doing.
Yeah.
There's no emotional connection with what you're doing. So like you said, if you're trying things and your wheels are spinning and I got to move on, I got to be able to shift. I got to pivot.
Yeah.
Pivot is my favorite thing.
Pivoting
is my favorite word, right?
Yes.
I pivot everything in life. If it's not working, girl, pivot. If it's not working, pivot this way.
Yeah.
Right? And you have to learn to accept, like I said at the beginning, there were trial and errors. And I had to accept those. And I will tell you, the moment I knew that my content and my niche were right for me was when I could go, this is going to sound like almost like bipolar, but I could go from like, maybe I had like a draft, right? It's just like, I think of like, I read my 4-year-old all the time, the Pout Pout Fish series.
Yeah.
And I was just a blah, blah, pout, pout fish and a glub, glub face, right? I can go from that to setting that camera up and the minute, welcome back to the Bougie Budget Mom. I'm so excited to cook with you guys today. My entire energy shift.
Yeah.
That was when I knew that was what I was supposed to be doing. The minute I was able to show up as my personal self, but also show up as my brand and those things, they're a marriage.
Yeah.
They are connected. They had a whole ceremony and I was able to be happy.
They said I do.
Yes.
They exchanged rings.
Yes.
It was great.
That's how I knew I was supposed to be doing what I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So I said earlier, you have to ask yourself about your why. And your why is going to change.
Yeah.
And that's okay too, right? So my why has changed. You asked me at the beginning, like, how I got started. And that question makes me so anxious, right? Because I'm like... I was
just posting on TikTok, and then the next thing I knew, it was like, oh, there were all these people that said keep going. And I was like, okay, so I just kept going.
Let's just keep going to all these. Okay,
Yeah.
Like, I was the person that got on TikTok in the middle... the beginning of the pandemic, right? And I'm just there because I'm bored.
Yeah.
Right? And then I made that $30 video. And at the beginning, my why was, I just wanted to like share. I just wanted to take people along with me. That was my why at the beginning. I just wanted to bring a little bit of light because we were still in kind of shutdown mode. We weren't doing big social events. Like we wouldn't have been able to do this. I had done a podcast during that time. It was based on mindset coaching, but had to be virtual because we couldn't sit with each other, right? And so I really just wanted to like not feel alone. And then it turned into, my wife pivoted from there, from like taking me back to being 22 and not being able to afford to eat anything but ramen and bread with butter. So that way I could feed my oldest, right? Actual food. He could have actual substance. And I lived off those ramen noodles and bread for how long? Until it was time, I got a better career and so on and so forth. And so I wanted to make people feel not alone in that. And know that it's okay to only have $50 to spend on groceries that week. And I'm going to show you how you can have some bomb-ass food.
Yeah.
And you can
Especially
be happy.
in today's world, too, because with the inflation and everything, like you sit there and think about how much more expensive stuff is when you go to the grocery store. So being able to feed a family of 4 on a $30 budget is like
insane.
It's like you're a magician.
Yes. But I've watched my content throughout, this past year. I look at that $30 video now, and with inflation, right, I've had to pivot.
Yeah.
I've had to change. I've had to change my approach in the grocery store. And I'm able to share with people how I do that. We prep, right? I have my 3 steps for grocery shopping. We don't ever go grocery shopping without those 3 steps, because anytime we do, what happens?
Overspend.
We overspend. We're frustrated. We're stressed out. So if you can be able to connect with your clients as an agent on, this is how we shop for insurance. This is how we figure out what insurance is good for you. And it is my job to help you be insured.
Yeah.
Right? So you'll have your steps as an insurance agent that you are able to give to them. And something that is going to set you apart from the other insurance agents is sharing those steps. Mm-hmm. Sharing with them almost the beginning to the end. What does it look like for you? What is it kind of like a day in the life? I am so guilty of, I love day in the life contents. Okay. It's like one of my favorites. Back in the day, we watched the YouTubes where it was way too scripted. Now it's like, oh my gosh, she's rushing to try to get her kids off to school. But then she sits down and she's a successful businesswoman, or he is a successful businessman, and he is selling insurance, or he is doing this, or he is doing that. But you still got to see that he was human. But he's going to show you, you know what, this is how we find good insurance for you. And that can help set you apart from Tom's.
Yeah.
Poor whatever Tom.
Poor Tom.
Whatever is listening.
Listen, Tom, I'm so sorry, Tom. You and your Wolf of Wall Street suit, we're so sorry.
Yeah, and I have a succulent that I named Tom, and so I think that's the Toms of the world. You're welcome here, okay? We like you, Tom.
Yes, Tom. But so actually step 3 was actually something you had actually just touched on, was defining your why, or defining your purpose. So your purpose for having a social media presence, other than, obviously, having an online presence to attract consumers and, having it as a form of digital marketing and lead generation, but really, using social media as a tool to, use inbound lead generation, and using it as a means of not only attracting customers, but also retaining those customers, developing a relationship of trust and rapport, and keeping that relationship of trust and rapport. I almost think of social media as maybe not like a diary, but almost like the story of my life over the last, however many years. Because we've obviously all been in the point of our lives, like when Facebook first started, or, when social media kind of first came about, where we were just kind of sharing everything, literally anything. I look back at my Facebook posts
every
from 2011 and I'm like, what in the world? What drugs was I on? I wasn't actually doing drugs, but
we might question it now.
Seriously. I'm like, why in the world? Like, what was I doing? Like this crazy child.
Yes. Or the hit me ups. What?
Oh
girl?
My gosh. Text, like going out to the mall this afternoon, text me.
Like for an honest review. Please stop.
Like, I'll like your picture if you like mine. And, oh gosh, the good old days, the good old days. But so kind of going into that, how is it that agents should be using their personal brand on social media? So number 1 is that consistency is key. So if you're not being consistent, if you're not posting consistently, if you're not consistently sharing great high quality content, so like content that's like blurry, out of focus, or that just kind of has like no meaning behind it, you have to have like some sort of purpose to it. You have to aim to either educate, entertain, or encourage. So if you are, there you go. They have the 3 E's. So if you are not educating someone, if you're not entertaining someone, and granted, like, some people might say like, oh, like a day in my life isn't entertaining, But it is, though. People want to know, oh, what does an insurance agent do all day? You know, you might think to yourself, like, oh, they just sit at the desk and wait for the phone to ring. It's like, no, like a lot of our agents are super, super busy. Like there are some times where I'm trying to get a hold of some of our agents or agencies to ask them questions about, you know, their social media profiles or like to let them know this, that, or the other. And they're either with clients or they're on the road or they're this, that, and the other. It's like, why aren't you filming that? Film everything. Everything is content. You know,
your Starbucks order is content.
Yeah. Oh
and it doesn't have to be video. It can be.
I treated myself to a coffee, like,
and
in
this is
between
my
clients
coffee
today.
order.
Yeah.
And you share that with them.
Or like recipes, you know,
Yes.
anything, literally anything.
I love that you said, you talked about like the consistency of posting on social media. So we all look at, when we're looking for a business, a brand, a company, the first thing we do, we don't Google anymore. I don't think like, especially with our generation. And I want to make sure that I talk about how you talked earlier about, you brought up, words are hard. You brought up earlier how there is almost a disconnect between kind of the new generation that's coming into insurance and then the older generation that's like, 50, 60, 70, and they're kind of doing this as a pastime or whatever, or it's their full-time career, whatever it is. You go Gun Cloco, I support you. But content on social media is very important, and I feel like we've gotten away from, like, we don't look at Yelp reviews, we don't really Google. The first thing we do is Facebook search. Yeah. Right? I Facebook search and TikTok search everything before I even go to Google, because most of the time I'm going to get my answer in 7 seconds or less, because consumers want quick, fast, and easy. Yeah. Even as a creator, I'm a consumer. Yeah. Regardless, right? I consume all day long. That's what we do.
That's what my last guest had just talked about too, was how he had gone to an appointment and then the next day he was able to see how many people had looked at either his Facebook page or his website or whatever. And it's not because people are looking at your Facebook page to first find you. It's most of the time they've already met you or they've already heard about you and they're sniffing you out and they're searching for you on social media, because they're using your social media page as a means of, your credibility and establishing, the fact that you are a legit business, you are a legit brand. And what to you as a consumer, or even to me as a consumer, if I'm looking for someone to work with or like a product or a service, and if I go and I look them up on social media, or if they don't have a social media presence, I'm like instantly scam.
Yep. Like, or it's just not worth it because I don't know anything about them. Yeah. For me, it's the Facebook pages. Yeah. Right.
Because you can go through Facebook and see, oh, I didn't know that. That's cool. I didn't know that. Oh, look, here's this person with their family. Okay, so this is probably legit. Like, no, this is a real person. They're actually an insurance agent and they know some stuff. I'd consider contacting them. It kind of like helps break down that wall and those barriers between I'm not going to make a purchase with this person or this brand at all, and I'll consider.
Yes, because I always look back at, I always think of like houses used to be built and sold by Sears, right? By the Sears guy that came and knocked on your door. Okay, we don't have the Sears guy comes and knocks on. We don't Sears anymore, anyways. But we don't have the Sears guy come and knock on our door, right? We don't have the insurance agent really come and just like knock on our door. Instead, we have, hey, I'm gonna quickly type into Facebook. I heard this name. I'm gonna find, and this is where the consistency is so important, because as a consumer, like I said, you got like 7 seconds. Yeah, that's the average. You got 7 seconds to grab somebody. A hook is extremely important when you're making videos, right? That's a whole different...
I always... the recipe for success for any insurance agent, for any of you out there that are listening that want to create high-quality video content, especially like for all of my agents that I'm telling them, you want... Think Medicare 101, your Medicare 101 presentations, but in 60-second, bite-size, easily digestible information. You always want to start off with a hook. Like, for example, you could say, like, here are 3 differences between Medicare Advantage and Medicare supplements. And then that's your hook. That's like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't know that. And then you can go into like your short 10-second elevator pitch. Hi, my name is John. I'm an insurance agent and I help seniors, find the best Medicare plans for them. And then you go into the meat and potatoes of the content, and then you have a call to action. Like this video if you found it helpful. Share this video with someone who's turning 65. Like stuff like that. And that's kind of like your recipe to success. So I'm so thankful that you said stuff about hooks, because I feel like I'm finally now talking to somebody who understands what I know. And I'm like, I know so much and I just want to share it all.
Yes. And sometimes I will be like talking and I'll get on, like, I get so excited, right? Yeah. About like, it's really important to have a hook. And then I call it a hook, information, meat, potatoes, call to action, right? But still the same thing, right? Like, how can you contact me? So I have my hook, right? And I do mine kind of a little bit backwards. So I say, welcome to the Bougie Budget Mom. Tonight we're cooking this, right? And then I break down the meat and potatoes and the yolk, quite literally.
Yeah.
And then come back for more, like and follow, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
And it kind of changes and pivots depending on what I'm filming. But regardless, there is always a hook, information about who I am, what we're doing here, right? So meat and potatoes, and how to stay informed with me.
Yeah.
How to be here, how to connect with me.
Yeah.
So that's so important. But I'll like get like all worked up and all excited. And then I'll be like, oh my gosh, I actually do know a lot. Like, I'm so excited. But what I wanted to say with the Facebook page was if I'm looking at somebody or TikTok, right? So when I was getting into social media and content creation, I paid for workshops because I wanted to not when I first, because first it was a lot of trial and error, but like after a couple months, I was like, okay, I want a little bit more knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. And I was so sick of like the gatekeeping that was going on in social media. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna pay for some workshops. But if I went to a business page on Facebook and I seen that your last post was 6 months ago, no.
Yeah. Instantly.
So
no.
how are you being successful then? And it would be the same shopping for insurance. So Facebook pages aren't just for business. That's where you can share. You take a picture of your Starbucks cup. This is what I got in my coffee this morning at Starbucks. What's your Starbucks order?
Yeah.
Right? And then you have those comments. You better interact with those comments.
Yes, I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, engagement is engagement. It doesn't matter what it is that
you can comment a heart. You could comment a heart
literally
back.
anything. Literally anything. So I get a ton of spam comments on my Instagram. Whenever I get those spam comments, I just reply to them. I reply to them with whatever I think is relevant about the post. So, for example, right now I'm promoting a lot of like the boudoir shoots that my cousin and I are doing. Like, she's a professional photographer, so we're doing boudoir minis in a couple of weeks. And so I've been trying to promote the shoots, and then I've been getting a bunch of spam comments. But I've been replying to those spam comments by just saying like, oh yeah, like, no, we still have one spot left, blah, blah, blah. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. As long as it's a comment, it counts as engagement, which therefore pushes your content further into the algorithm, which makes more people see it. It doesn't matter what it is. Just do something.
Yes. You can literally, like I said, you can comment a heart. You can circle back to what your post is about as long as you're engaging. And earlier I said we were talking about that disconnect between the newer generation of insurance agents that are coming in because more well-versed in social media and branding and just marketing and all the things versus the older generation, which did things kind of old-fashioned, which if it's not broken, don't fix it type of mentality. You talked about that. I'm still sometimes a firm believer on that mentality, but I also am like, oh, I got to be open to like
trying new things.
But that older generation, they're picking up the phone and they're making that personal connection. So as the newer generation coming in, that's where you double dip. I said earlier on the sending the email and the phone call.
Yeah.
That is where you are double dipping and you are like, you're getting instant connection with the consumer, the client, which is amazing. They're getting to hear your voice through the phone instead of just seeing you on a Facebook page. Even if you're like, okay, I'm like all about this marketing and branding. I am ready to dive into developing my personal brand and figuring out what my brand looks like. What do I want my website to look like? So on and so forth. But you're like, I'm not comfortable getting in front of the camera yet. That's okay. But you also have to make sure you're still present, right? So that might be Facebook pictures, that might be Instagram pictures, whatever. But you're still showing them connection. And then after that, you get their contact information. So you're emailing and the phone call. And then that's kind of where they're getting to hear your voice.
Yeah.
Right? What does Kelsey sound like? What does Tom sound like? Ooh, Tom's really cool, but he's kind of a little bit too, Wolf of Wall Street for me. Kelsey's like, she's cool, calm, and collect. She wears slippers. I like her.
Yeah.
And we get that. I'm the type of person that I always kind of go off the first 15 seconds vibe with somebody. And if it's not vibing, it's not vibing.
Yeah.
But that gives you that option to slowly work your way into branding and being more comfortable with it. Because it's easy for us to say, people who are in front of cameras all the time and all day long, like, I still get nervous. Okay, guys, I had to give myself 2 pep talks in the car. But it's easy for us to say, just do it.
Yeah.
Like Nike over here,
Yeah.
right? It's easy for us to say that. But I'm also big on good things come in time.
Yeah.
And give yourself, that's where that trial and error comes in, right? So I did a lot of my trial and error over on TikTok so that way I could start building my brand on Instagram and monetizing that content and moving it back and forth and stuff like that.
When we're talking about branding on social media, so for you as a consumer and then me as a consumer, I guess we can kind of like bounce some ideas off of each other in this, but what do you think to you is important for an insurance agent to be able to do as far as their branding on social media when it comes to the overall look of their social media profiles? Would you be more apt to working with an agent or agency if either they had a headshot as their profile picture or their logo as a profile picture?
Headshot.
Headshot. Okay.
So I'm big, like your logo is very important, right? Because it's a logo.
Yeah.
It's part of branding. But for me as a consumer, now this might differ. Somebody else might be like, oh no, I want a logo. I want to see what their logo looks like. But for me as a consumer, I want to know you.
Yeah.
I'm giving you my valuable information. I mean, as an insurance agent, you know my name, my address, my phone number.
Like,
Probably,
you know a lot about me.
You know a lot about me.
Yeah.
Right? Probably my social security number. I don't know. You know a lot of things. So I want to know what you look like.
For anybody out there listening, I do not recommend putting your social media, don't put your social security number out on the internet. Don't do it.
Don't do that. But as a consumer, I want to know what you look like because I'm giving you all of this information about myself to sign insurance. So your logo should still be visible. I should still be able to see your logo. So like on Facebook, you have for a Facebook page or a Facebook group or whatever, you can have your headshot as like the profile thing and then
your logo as the banner.
As the banner,
Yeah.
the cover. So that way they're still seeing what your branding is because
Yeah.
branding is very important. We talked about this earlier in the concept of it, but they also need to see you.
Yeah. I personally, so for me, especially so obviously me coming from somebody who, works in the beauty space, I find that branding is really consistent for different companies or different brands just in general when their logo is their profile picture, but maybe they've got either like other imagery, especially like on Facebook, like in their profile banner. Maybe it's like their team or maybe it's like other stuff. But even if you didn't want to show your face in your content, because I know that there are still quite a few people that are just like, I just don't feel comfortable like showing my face in my content. And that's fine. Then that's when I feel like it's more appropriate to have your headshot as your profile picture, especially on LinkedIn as well. So like LinkedIn, I think like the profile picture is going to be more important. But on Instagram, because you don't have the option to do both a logo and a headshot as your main imagery, is depending on what your comfort level is. And it also depends on who your target audience is as well. Because if you're a Medicare agent, most of the time you're probably not going to be on Instagram unless you're using it as a means of generating a relationship with people that are like maybe in their 40s or 50s. And then you want to continue to get their brand trust by the time that they're into the Medicare system. Besides the point, but making sure that you at least have your logo that's really present somewhere. If your logo is not going to be your profile picture, it should be on every single one of your social media graphics. It should be at the end of every single one of your pieces of content or your video, something somewhere. Your imagery should be everywhere. Like
your
we should
email,
be
everywhere.
It should be, there should be no question from any one of your consumers as to, again, who you are, what you do, and how what you do provides value, as well as having a recognizable brand logo, because that in and of itself is important because that's how people are going to recognize you when they see you out and about.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Tiffany, thank you so much for coming down and sitting with me and talking about personal brands. We went like really into depth with it, which I think is great. And I think we talked about some really great information today.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. Was super excited to be here.
Yay.
So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Well, thank you so much for all of you guys out there listening. And if you are watching us over on our YouTube channel, we thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in following Insurance Advisors Direct on social media, we are on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, YouTube, as well as TikTok. You can see all my funny face over on Tickety Talkety. But yeah, if you are an independent agent and you are looking for an industry partner, we here at Insurance Advisors Direct would love to be considered. We are a full service FMO and we would love to have you. So if you are interested in looking us up, you can look at our website. You can go to www.iadbrokerage.com or you can call us toll free 1-800-381-0977. Well, thank you so much again, Tiffany, for joining me. And thank you guys all out there for listening. And we will see you in the next one. Bye.